Let's start off with the background info. Who is Anne Frank? Why is she so well known? Anne Frank was a Jewish girl and a diarist who became one of the most well-known victims of the Holocaust. She lived from 1929 to 1945. She lived in Frankfurt, Germany until she moved to Amsterdam, Netherlands to escape the Nazi reign. On July 5, 1942, 16-year-old Margot Frank received an official summons call-up to report for transport to a Nazi forced labor camp in Germany. This order, delivered to the Frank home in Amsterdam, forced the family to immediately go into hiding into the secret annex the next day. Prior to hiding, Anne received her white and red checkered diary for her 13th birthday, July 12, 1942. Historical context. During World War II, which lasted from 1939 to 1945, many countries were fighting in a global conflict. Germany, led by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, was trying to expand its control across Europe. In 1940, Germany invaded and occupied the Netherlands, where Anne Frank and her family were living. This meant that the Dutch government was no longer in control, and Nazi laws began to be enforced there. The Holocaust was a systematic persecution and murder of 6 million Jewish people by the Nazi reign. The Nazis believed in racist and anti-Semitic ideas and treated Jewish people as if they were inferior. Jewish families were separated, forced from their homes, and sent to concentration camps and extermination camps. Before many Jewish people were arrested, they were forced to follow strict laws that limited their freedom. They had to wear a yellow Star of David on their clothing daily so that others could identify them. They were not allowed to attend certain schools, go to public places like parks or movie theaters, or own businesses. Jewish people also had curfews and were not allowed to use public transportation. These rules made daily life very difficult and isolated them from the rest of society. Because arrests were increasing, many Jewish families realized they were in serious danger. Hiding became one of the only ways to try to stay safe. Anne Frank's family went into hiding in 1942 in a secret annex behind her father's office building. They hoped that by staying hidden they could avoid being arrested and survive the war. This constant fear and isolation shaped Anne's daily life and is why her diary is such an important historical document. My research question is, how does prolonged isolation under constant fear affect people's relationships with others, and what does it reveal about how people change emotionally and behaviorally? Throughout my research and reading Anne Frank's diary, I learned that long periods of isolation and fear can deeply change how people interact with each other. In the secret Annex A, people were forced to live together in a very small space for more than 2 years. They had to stay quiet during the day, could not go outside, and constantly worried about being discovered. This created stress, tension, and frequent arguments. Anne's diary shows how fear can make relationships more complicated. There were conflicts between adults about food, rules, and responsibilities. Small problems often felt much bigger because everyone was anxious and confined. Anne sometimes felt misunderstood by her mother and argued with her, which shows how stress can strain even close family relationships. At the same time, I learned that isolation can also lead to emotional growth. Anne changed a lot during her time in hiding. At the beginning of her diary, she describes herself as talkative and sometimes immature, but as time passed, her writing became more thoughtful and self-aware. She reflected on her own flaws, her identity, and the kind of person and author she wanted to become. Even in constant fear, she developed hope and a strong belief in the goodness of people. Her relationship with Peter Van Damme is a good example of how isolation can intensify emotions. Peter Van Damme is the teenage son of the Van Damme family who hid in the secret annex with Anne Frank and her family. In real life, his name is Peter Van Pels, and he became one of Anne's closest companions while they were in hiding. Because their world was so small, their friendship became very meaningful to her. It shows how during difficult times, people often seek comfort and connection even more strongly. Overall, Anne's diary reveals that prolonged fear and isolation can create tension and emotional strain, but it can also lead to maturity, deeper reflection, and personal growth. Her experience shows that even in extreme circumstances, people continue to change, adapt, and search for meaning. Here's why it still matters today. Anne Frank's diary still matters today because it is one of the most widely read and well-known books about the Holocaust. Unlike history textbooks that focus on large events and numbers, her diary gives a personal perspective. Readers see the war through the eyes of a real teenager with thoughts, fears, and dreams. The secret annex is now the Anne Frank House Museum in Amsterdam, where people from around the world visit to learn about her life in the Holocaust. This shows how powerful her story continues to be decades later. Her diary teaches empathy because it reminds us that the victims of the Holocaust were not just statistics. They were real people with families, goals, emotions, and personalities. Anne wrote about wanting to become a writer, about friendships, and about growing up. Those are experiences many people can relate to, which makes her story feel personal and human. It still impacts readers today because it encourages us to reflect on prejudice, discrimination, and the importance of standing up for others. Even in extremely difficult circumstances, Anne's hope and honesty continue to inspire people around the world. 196,600 Jewish Holocaust survivors are alive globally, according to the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany. Here are a few examples of the survivors' reality during World War II.
I was 13 and a half when I arrived in Auschwitz.
I was 14.
2 weeks after my 13th birthday.
We children held each other's hands, we held our parents' hands. I mean, we were just literally torn apart. And in a matter of minutes.
I was separated from my mother. I remember my dad going up that way. I remember staying with my sister.
I had a younger sister holding her hand. A stick came down between us, and she was sent off. I lost her. I lost my little sister somehow. Before we were taken to barracks, we were processed, undressed, the hair cut, body haircut. We came out looking identical. Sisters, mothers wouldn't identify each other. We were no longer people.
You're thrown some.
My father was a big fella. He's about 6'4", strong. And my mother was a 5 foot barely, and 100 pounds probably or less. And then I had an older brother, and myself, and a younger sister. I guess they didn't know what to do with us. They didn't have no room for us or whatever. And that's when I lost my brother, because he got sick right away, diarrhea, terribly bad. And he couldn't be propped up even to stand up when they wanted us to line up to be counted. There was no place to go. The barbed wire already was energized. And when we could not prop him up, me and my other friends, prisoners there, they shot him beside my feet. I think that was the killer to me too. I mean, right there, it just hurt me terrible bad, because I was so close to him, and he was my pride, an officer in the military, and strong and handsome and everything, and loved him. And when they killed him, I just...
Did you ever read her diary while she was writing it?
No, never.
Did you actually know she was writing it?
Oh, yes. She asked me several times, Father, see that nobody's disturbing me. I want to write in my diary.
I know that there is an Anna Frank Foundation, Mr. Frank. What is the purpose and the aim of it?
Well, in short, I should say to fight against prejudice and discrimination, respectively hatred, against people of different race and religion.
Well, I'm sure that's an aim that Anna would have been happy about.
I think so.
I'm sure it is. And in an extraordinary way, I think maybe something good has come out of the terrible thing that has happened.
I am sure of that.
Do you think many people have used this book as an inspiration in
Many
moments
did,
of...
and it changed even many lives.
Yes.
I know from young people who wrote me, after I have read Anna's diary, I choose to be a teacher or a doctor or even a clergyman.
Very briefly, Mr. Frank, did it give you inspiration and courage to get through your ordeal?
Every day.
Mr. Frank,
say.
Thank you very much indeed on behalf of me, and thank you very much on behalf of all the Blue Peter viewers who saw the film about Anna Frank and who wrote to us. I know they'll have been delighted and very moved to have seen Anna's real diary.
In conclusion, researching Anne Frank and her diary helped me understand that history is not just about major events or dates, but about real people and their lived experiences. Through her writing, we see how prolonged isolation and a constant fear affected relationships, emotions, and personal growth. Anne's diary shows both the challenges of living and hiding and the strength of the human spirit. Her words give us a perspective on the Holocaust that feels personal and real in a way that textbooks alone cannot. Even though her life ended during the war, her diary continues to educate people, encourage empathy, and remind us of the importance of understanding and respecting others. Anne Frank's story proves that even in the darkest times, a single voice can still make a lasting impact.